Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to yet another review. Remember, we are trying a new format out where we just discuss the pros and the cons of the game and ignore all the fluff we don't need that you can easily look up and it's just basic information. Today I wanted to talk about Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, and it's a game that I recently finished on my channel. You'll understand why I put quotes around that at the end of this review, but just stick with me with that. As always, this review is purely my opinion. And that said, let's get right into it. Let's start with the pros. This game is downright gorgeous. From the environments, to the animations, to even the character models, everything looks great. Sure, there are a few odd walking animations, and a few things look a bit out of place, but overall, I really love the aesthetic of this game. Another aspect done really well is the battle system. It's a pretty simple system on the surface, but with item choices, move choices, and positioning, it can actually get pretty deep. Even though the game is basically turn-based, there is a strong emphasis on positioning and distance. Attacks have ranges, and you are encouraged to take advantage of those long ranges. It's surprisingly deep, and yet still very satisfying. As for another pro, well, I enjoyed the story. As with most Pokemon games, it isn't really deep, but I think the main characters are characterized well. The dialogue is pretty well written, and while I can't say the story is amazing, it was good, and it kept me engaged. Another aspect I like is the rescuing. If you die in a dungeon, it isn't game over. You can head over to Pelipper Island and ask for help. Friends can use codes to access your dungeons and rescue you, allowing you to progress. Now, if you don't have friends, don't fret. You can actually rescue yourself as long as you have more Pokemon than the few that fainted in the dungeon. It's a really nice system, and the addition of being able to rescue yourself is top notch. Finally, I really enjoyed the recruitment system. In previous games, it was random. You didn't really have a say in who you recruited, it just kind of happened. In this installment, anytime you complete a quest for a client, they join your team. It's a very streamlined process, and while it takes away the random encounters, I really appreciate it. It's a very streamlined process, and while it takes away from the random encounters, I really appreciated it. Honestly though, that's all the pros there is. It hurts me to say that, as I loved the games on the original DS, but there are quite a few things I do not like about this game. For starters, it almost feels as if the developers of this game do not understand what difficulty is. Usually, games start off easy and then ramp up. The game might be more difficult at the end, but you've been playing it as a steady progression, so it's something you can handle. However, Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon has an incredibly varied difficulty. Some missions are way too easy, some are frustratingly difficult. For example, one of the very first missions pits you up against a level 50 Salamence. This mission is required, and unfortunately, you are way underleveled at this point, say around level 10. It makes no sense why this is a starting mission and why we have to do it. Even the final areas, while should be hard, are just plainly too hard. Boss attacks nuke your entire team for more than half of their health. You basically have to grind every single mission in the game before story missions because you might have a very hard time. Something that ties in with the difficulty is the item system. While I appreciate having a multitude of options for battle, the implementation of these items are just absurd. The item shops in town have a very limited stock that is randomized. You'll usually only find one of each item, and once you buy it, you can't buy another one. To add to this, the place you find the items most in is in dungeons. The problem with this is, again, the items are randomized and there's simply not enough items. Now, I would not have an issue with this if the game didn't force you to rely on using wands and orbs to dispel some of the difficulty. But since items are limited and hard to find, you end up in a very difficult position. Do you use the wand on this random enemy to save yourself, or do you use it for the boss that you know you'll need it for? You know you can't rely on finding another one, so it puts the player in a very unfair position. To continue on with players being in unfair positions, I'd like to talk about saving in this game. When you are in a dungeon, you can save whenever, as long as a cutscene or a dialogue isn't happening. However, when you're in a dungeon, you must use a progress device. These are items that you can buy from shops or find in dungeons. I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say, but I'll say it anyway. These items are rare. You can't find them easily, and in my playthrough, I only ever had about 5. But here's the issue. There is no saving without a progress device, and unfortunately, each one is single use only. It's just absurd that you have a limited way to save your game. Who let that through? I mean, seriously, it's just bad design. Another thing that really bothers me is how much this game drags. I'd wager that a good majority of this game is forced side quests. These side quests are important to filling out your roster and leveling up. However, they are forced on you. The thing is that for most story missions, you can't even use the extra Pokemon you pick up through the side quest. You're always stuck with the Pokemon that was chosen for you in the beginning and your partner. Now, maybe they added in the forced side quests in order to force you to level up for harder story missions, but I think that's, again, bad design. I shouldn't have to grind my way through forced missions that have absolutely nothing to do with the story, even in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, a game's story doesn't and shouldn't be run through as quickly as possible, but I always like the option to continue the story whenever I'm ready. Not having the option is really rather annoying. All in all, with total honesty, I don't like this game. I love the mystery dungeon concept. I love the previous iterations. Hell, I'd even say I like Gates to Infinity better than this game. I think they really dropped the ball here. Now, there's nothing ever really wrong with a hard game. That's okay. Games can be hard. The issue is when the games are hard and they make you rely on something that is hard to come by. The item system in this game is just atrocious. I shouldn't have to rely on randomized loot in order to get my way through a dungeon. The fact that I need these wands and orbs in order to beat a boss without dying 700 times is very off-putting. You know, if you watched my LP, you'd understand what I mean. A lot of times you die because you don't have the item that you need in order to get the enemy away from you. And you just have to stop and think, is that good design? And for me, no. I want to enjoy a game. I don't want to be frustrated by one. And unfortunately, this game frustrated me more than I enjoyed it. The concept, the graphics, the characters, the story, well done. But the implementation of the mechanics just weren't. And it's really sad for me because I really loved Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue and Explorers of Sky and whatever the other one, I think it was Explorers of Time. I love those games. Those were fun. But this isn't fun. I didn't even finish the game. That's how frustrated I was. I redid the final boss 6 or 7 times, and I'm looking into the future and I'm saying, I'm never gonna beat this thing. No matter how hard I try, I'm in a position where I have literally no chance of beating this boss, no matter what I do. I can't go back and get items because there are no items to get back. I can't restart the thing because when I died and I restarted it, it just put me in the middle of the dungeon. So, yeah, it's really, I'm not happy with the game. I really do not like it. And, you know, again, this is my opinion, and I recommend you looking at multiple reviews because I think it did get at least favorable reviews. So maybe I'm just playing the game wrong. Maybe I don't understand something. So I definitely suggest looking at multiple reviews before you just take my word as gospel. But that said, that's how I feel. I really do appreciate you guys watching, and I hope to catch you guys at the next episode. Peace.